you feel black and white, alone and lost in the yellow brick road. And the gift that you were given, stuffed down deep inside, always feels like a heavy load. The people that surround you put you down and try to drown you, but they don't see your spirit like I do. God knows you're special, your own special way. I bet you're so tired of pretending. There's more chapters, it's never too late to start writing your own happy ending, your own happy ending. Do you believe me? Something and show it to the world, and you'll finally find that place where you belong. We'll set out on that highway, and you'll find you're not alone. What makes you different is what makes you strong. Well, God knows you're special, your own special way. I bet you're so tired of pretending.
I wanted to show you something I forgot to show you, which is the Newsweek has a special edition this week. And it says spiritual living, and it's all about spiritual living and all the different ways of spiritual living. And there's this quote in here that I think is so powerful. It said that in 2009, a Pew Research poll found 49% of Americans reported having spiritual or mystical experiences. That's half the population. Probably you. How many of you have had a spiritual or mystical experience? And you want more, because they're really cool. And then kind of frightening. Aren't they cool and frightening? Yeah, because they're uncontrollable. Oh. All right. This number, the 49%, is up from 22% reported in 1962, suggesting as a nation we may be becoming more and more spiritually attuned. Not necessarily religious, but spiritually attuned. We want it. We look for it. We notice it. We pay attention to it. It could be that people were having it before, but they didn't know what it was. Well, it was my crazy aunt. I don't know. So there's another article in here on page 28, which is about higher education and higher self. And they found one of the best educational organizations that help people grow in their spirituality are the Centers for Spiritual Living. Yeah, so cool. Oh, that's good news. So speaking of the Centers for Spiritual Living, we're going to start out this idea of mastering our mind and thoughts by studying some of the thoughts of Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of this philosophy and this organization. And then next week we're going to study the Buddha, and we're going to wrap up with Jesus because it's March and it's going to be Easter, and so, why not? But all of them could master their mind. And because they could master their mind, they did great things. So to start with the wisdom of Ernest Holmes, and to get prepared for this, I started reading everything I could find on Ernest Holmes, and he wrote a lot of books. And luckily, for some reason I don't understand, I can actually sort of speed read, and maybe it's because I know what he's talking about, so I was zipping through things. And so I started out with the easy first books. I mean, not easy, but they were the first books that he wrote, like Creative Mind and Success, and books like Basic Ideas of Science Mind and How to Use the Science Mind, and then the Science Mind, all that stuff. And then I wrapped up the last few days with his older works, which were really small lectures he had in his home with his closest students, and then they were transcribed. And there he would just talk. So he wasn't trying to tell anything, he was just sort of saying what was on his mind at the moment and what had influenced him the day before. And what I found from that is that he was an incredible, voracious reader, and that he could quote and compare the philosophies of Plotinus with the works of Jung, and the works of Jung with Einstein and Quimby and all of these people, and he could see how they were related and how they influenced him and the philosophy that he had been developing and the life that he was living. But here's the thing that I thought was funny, before I get to what I think is the very essence of what he was teaching, at least in all of those books. And I'm going to tell you what I think is the essence. The essence is what speaks to me. So you're going to hear what speaks to me. And if you hear what speaks to me, you're going to know what I need. Because I'm a teacher, and I will sometimes assign chapters to people, and they'll read a chapter, and I will underline things and notice that the writer says the same thing 7 times and reiterates it and reiterates it and reiterates it. And I say, so what's the idea that the author was going for? And I will get as many ideas as there are students in the room, because that's what they needed to read. So actually, being a public speaker is an incredibly revealing process. So you may read all of his books, or even one of them, and get something totally different, but you're going to get what I have today, what I needed today. But before I get there, I had this really funny thing. At least I thought it was funny, because he was so transparent and so humble. He said something, and I sent it out to all the practitioners. He said, I'm not like I used to be 40 years ago. In essence, he said, I'm more teachable and more flexible. The more he learned, the more he knew he had to learn. Incredibly humble and open and expansive consciousness. But I thought this was funny. He said over and over again, I didn't discover anything. I have not created anything that's original. There is nothing original, except this is original. For me to say there's nothing original is very original. So for him to say that it's just all recycled stuff and not claim that he has anything new in the universe, he said, that's really original. Because somebody's saying that they discovered and created painted eggs. If you study long enough, you'll see how just as temples were built on temples and built on temples and built on temples, and time, sacred time, was usurped by other people that came along, so too all ideas were probably around for a very long time. And then we claim them as our own. So I think it's a really cool idea that so that from now on, let's just make it official and a tradition that whoever says Nurus Robati to a Persian will have good luck for 7 generations. Let's just make it official, It's just, let's do it like they all do it. Somebody said it and we claim it. It's cool. So, what did he say over and over again that I kept reading over and over again? And I did. I read it in so many different ways. But what he said, or what he wanted to put his emphasis on, were 2 things. The first one was about oneness, and that there isn't God and there's only God as. So just as we talk about body, mind, and spirit, it's not body, mind, and spirit. That sounds like three different things. It sounds like a Russian doll that you can pull apart. And even though they have the same shape and sort of the same identity, they're not the same because you can put them apart. No, it's not that. It's not God and anything. It's not God as me, but then I don't know about you. It's just God. Just God as. Spirit slowing down to the place of the material. And because of that, he had this other idea around that, and that is that there is a fluidity between thoughts and things. So that's what I want to talk about today, because we're talking about mastering our mind. And if we want to master our mind, we have to see that thoughts and things have a relationship. They are a relationship. It's not a thing and then I have a thought. No, the thought and the thing are in relationship. Thoughts become things, and then we look at the things that create more thoughts, and then thoughts become things, and so everything is sort of circling around, and when you can get that, you can know that you can break the circuit by changing the thought. So what he would say is change the thing into a thought, and then change that thought, and the thing will have to start to morph into something else, which is very much like Buddha. Buddha said, you are today the result of your past thoughts. Been said by so many ways, in so many ways by so many different people. So that's the crux of it. That's the easy part of it. He would quote Einstein and said, this is much like energy becomes matter and matter becomes energy. And then he'd quote Phineas P. Quimby, who said, mind becomes matter because it solidifies into matter. And so to him, everything was a circle. But it doesn't matter that everything is a circle unless you can use that circle. He also said all the time, I don't care what you know, and I don't even care what I know. What's important is what we use and understand because we've used it. We understand it because we've used it. So it doesn't matter how Plotinus relates to Jung, relates to Quimby, relates to Toward, and it doesn't matter. What matters is, can you use it and make your life better because of it? That's what Ernest Holmes was all about. Don't know what I know. Know how I did it so you can know for yourself. So let me give you a little illustration about that, because I want to do two things. I want to describe how perhaps you could start to use this philosophy, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. So if you don't understand, it's okay, because you'll ask a question. And we had 2 questions the last service, and they were perfect. I can't cover everything in the time I've got, but if you listen, you might have a question, and then we'll apply it, okay? So let me give you an illustration. After 40 years of being in this philosophy, because I started when I was 2, I was a metaphysical prodigy. And by the way, metaphysical means beyond the physical. It just means how did the physical come to be? Was it just pop up? Random? Helter-skelter? Who knows what? If it did, then you couldn't count on anything. There's something that's forming and informing that which is physical. So I've been studying this for 40 years, and I kind of get the grip, or get a gist of it and kind of understand it, but I understand it because I would learn something and try it out and then prove it in my life, and then I could really understand it. And I'm saying that because some of you may be here for the first time. A gentleman came this morning for the first time. You may be here for 10 years. But what Ernest Holmes wants is he wants us to know this so much that we can take on the world's problems and feel secure that we can make a shift. But we'll never be able to take on the world's problems and be secure we can make a shift if we've never tried it out in the only thing we've got, which is our own mind or petri dish. So the more we prove to ourselves, the more we have confidence in taking on bigger challenges. So it's important that we kind of understand these things. And one of the reasons that I try on and move into areas I'm not secure in, that I haven't been at it for 40 years, is so I can see what my own learning process is. And what I've noticed is I can be told something, but unless I try it out and see how it works, I really don't know it. So I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can try out this idea that thoughts and things are in relationship. A fluidity, a bouncing back and forth. And out of trying it out, you'll be more secure in knowing that you understand it and then can apply it more often. So, Ernest said this. We must dissolve the thing, whatever the thing is. Anybody got a thing? Thank you for the thing. We must dissolve the thing into a thought and then change the thought. So an easy illustration is, talking about myself, is that last week I talked about being uncoordinated, and I was so uncoordinated that I could even cause my horse to be uncoordinated. I'd get on him, and he'd be uncoordinated. It wasn't that way for anybody else. Now that's pretty powerful. But that's kind of how thoughts become things. But I have to, and I worked on this last week, is just because I discovered that I have had this operating principle in me that I'm uncoordinated. So you look at patterns. See, the patterns, what happens? What's the thing that keeps being, it's like deja vu only with different faces. Because if I think about it, I also feel sometimes uncoordinated in conversations, in relationships. I sometimes feel uncoordinated in my ability to maneuver in new areas. I don't feel secure. So I knew that uncoordinated was the seed thought, and I needed to change it to something, and I actually had a hard time speaking of it. Because if you've been a thing for so long, it's hard to know what that thing isn't. Isn't it true? So I actually what's the opposite of uncoordinated? Now I can't just say coordinated because that's not quite it. It's like, the words that came up for me is graceful, yes, and balanced. So I now get to affirm that this person who's been uncoordinated gets to practice being graceful and balanced. Now, can you see how graceful can show up in a whole lot of areas besides just the physical realm? To feel graceful? So, what I encourage you to do is to look at something that just seems to happen. Something that just seems to be a trigger and happen over and over. I love it. I don't believe that we should dissect everything that happens to us. I mean, my goodness, there'd be no time for fun. Oh, I tripped. Well, actually, if I tripped, I should dissect it. But now that I'm graceful and balanced. But for instance, I too had the C word. But I was like Graydon. I was just like, the doctor wanted to hold my hand and say, honey, this is cancer. And it's like, in my head, I was like, oh, honey, you don't understand. You may call it that, but these are just rogue cells. And they're my rogue cells. And my rogue cells are going to start cooperating with this girl. Got it? And sure enough, so I'm not going to dissect why I got it. But if something happens over and over and over again, I need to ask myself, why am I creating this over and over and over again? See, stuff happens even to nice people, even to spiritual people. And I have to say that, and I'm going to say it over and over and over again, because I have watched people have a something happen and then question God. Why? There is nothing in the Bible that says, oh, and if you love God, nothing will ever happen to you. No, it says that you'll be lifted above it. But it didn't say that it won't happen, because you can't be lifted if something didn't happen. How you go through something is really the measure of how you master your minds and thoughts. So don't dissect stuff, but boy, patterns, oh. A pattern is revealing. Because in the middle of that pattern, there's a something. Sort of sneakily creating chaos. So when you feel like you felt this way before, ask yourself, what's running me? And in the middle of what's running me, there is a word. There is a thought. And when you can name the thought, in every ancient tradition, if you could name it, you could master it. Because if you name it, you can change it. So part of mastering our mind and our thoughts is having the discipline to walk into this fog of free-form anxiety or fear and say, what's causing this here? So that's the thought. Can I have what's that thing called? Yeah, thank you. I'm so grateful we're all together. So, does anyone have a question? TC, do you have a thing?
All right. Oh, I come up here? Oh, great.
No, this is so you can lean on me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so when the,
Thank you. Well, I can't, not right now. Thank you.
okay, when the thing,
Just briefly the thing. You don't have to tell them.
it's, you nailed it when you said it's a different face on the same thing. But the thing is so hard to pin down what it is that is showing up in me to attract the thing. How do you find the bottom and the?
Okay, so do you want to tell me what the faces are? What did the faces make you feel like?
Like that's a hard one. And I'm in front of a lot of people. They make me.
Turn your faces. Just tell me how you feel.
I feel useless and like I'm the problem. Like I'm causing them pain by being there.
Who's ever felt like that? I think, yeah. So let me just check. Do you have a deep-seated belief that there's something wrong with you or that you're just wrong?
Oh, probably that I'm just wrong.
Because it shows up in their faces.
Yeah. I feel like I cheated my parents to get me here. Sort of, like I don't belong.
Yeah, parents.
And I think that's what shows up recurringly in the faces. I don't
Okay.
belong here.
I don't belong here. That's great. So you don't belong here. Now, if God's everywhere and God's on purpose and God shows up as you must belong, right?
Yeah, on paper.
On paper. So that's the part where you have to make the switch. It's like, is it, no, just check, I got to check you out. Okay, is it that I don't belong? I'm going to give you three options. In fact, put out your hands. One hand. Okay, this is I don't belong, and this is something's wrong with me. Which one's heavier?
Oh, this one.
This one's heavier?
I don't belong.
Okay, so you don't belong. So now that you know that, just like I knew I was uncoordinated and I have proof. And you have proof. Your parents are proof that you don't belong.
Yeah.
That's just proof.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So the next thing then is to say, as a child of God, I belong. And everyone knows it. Now look at that. Yeah. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like it. Now you can't just change that thought. I have to work at being balanced. I have to continually see myself as being balanced and say in the morning, I'm balanced, because for all my life I've said as uncoordinated. But now that I know what it is, it's like I've been given the key. I still have to turn it. So now your prayer, and of course for people that are, learning to be prayer practitioners and stuff, then they would pray for you to know that you belong, and everybody knows you belong. In fact, you show up and they just celebrate. Everybody goes, oh, yay, TC! Oh, man!
That'd be awesome.
Well, that's because you got to turn that lock. Okay?
You gotta work it.
You got to work it. Okay, cool. Thank you. So, get the idea? Just because you know what it is doesn't mean that it's an instant. Now, sometimes it will be instant. Sometimes recognition is like light and all darkness is dispelled. But most of the time, it is that you now know what to follow to get to the light, and you just keep saying it because that becomes the new operating principle. But when the thought changes, the things must change. Now, see, you have to stay with changing the thought, because until the thought changes the things, you'll look out there in the world and you go, no, nothing's changed. Because it's fluid. So you keep changing that thought until the new thought happens. So I'm going to end today with a gift to you, which sort of wraps up everything we've been talking about. And especially how we've been trained to be influenced by the outer instead of being masters of the inner. So this is a perfect way to close out a talk on mastering your mind and your thoughts. Here's a video for you.
You should be able to hear this whether you're a Christian or a spiritual person or you're an atheist, and just understand there's a creative part of you that lives in the moment. That's the part of you that's creating and having a great time. And here's where people get caught up. They go, well, is that the universe? Or is it God? Or is it your instincts? I don't know. You should be able to say all of them. That thing doesn't matter. People get so caught up in arguing about that crap that they miss the point. They miss the growing. It doesn't matter what the hell it is. Connect with that place. Connect with that place. It feels like you're either this skeptical, angry person that believes nothing's possible, and you're just like, everything's bullshit and I hate this, or there's this weird other extreme where they change their name to like Rainbow Maca Sunshine and they don't shave their armpits. I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing, so this isn't judgment. But like, what about all the people in the world that just want to do more with their life? I think to myself, where's the middle? There's got to be a middle there where we are like we were when we were kids. You are what you love and not what loves you. If you really break that down, what that means is when we were kids, all we did was played. We literally just played and we did what we loved to do. We created. We were drawing all day. We were singing all day. We didn't care what people thought about us or what our ex-girlfriend was doing. We didn't even care about that stuff, or who are we going to get to date us, or what's the boss think at the company. We just did what we loved to do. We created and we played all day, literally all day. And we pretended that we were certain people that we wanted to be when we grew up. We pretended we were firemen or a DJ or a comedian or a famous singer. And we just did that. It was going from in to out. Our creativity was what was running us. It was going from in to out. It was going from in to out. It was going from And as time goes on, we learn from society we can't do stuff, and kind of society turns us into a consumer. We've been conditioned to move to a place of what loves us, and almost every decision we make now is based on what other people think about us. If you go on a date with someone you really like, you're going, I want this person to like me. So you're saying this person completes me. So you're really saying I'm incomplete without this person. You're going to be insane on the date. And that's why we're in fear, because we're running around going, oh man, I hope this thing goes this way. I hope I get this job. I hope this person likes me. Oh, what if I don't get rent paid, blah, blah, blah. If you're under the illusion that these things outside of you are what complete you, you will always be a victim, because everything has to change to make you happy. So you're dependent on that, and you're moving from a place from out to in. When you were a kid, you weren't sitting there managing fake lists and hoping you had as many customers as possible. You were working on you. And that same mentality exists in the people who are the greatest at what they do. The greatest speakers and the greatest everyone doesn't worry about their list. They weren't looking at their list and how many people they got. They were working on themselves, and they were excelling at that. And because of that, they were undeniably amazing.
You can work, but it can be effortless. I think that there's a level of effortlessness that shows up by you enjoying the process of working on yourself. That's the goal of life. And when you do that, the results will show up when they're supposed to. Instead, let go of the results. Have a little intention, let go of the results, and watch how quickly they show up when you let go of them.
You are what you love and not what loves you.